Welcome back, everyone. This is our third and final, I swear to God, it is the final episode of Fellowship of the Ring. We finally finished the first episode of the trilogy. But anyways, where we left off, we were talking about the wizard fight in the middle of Fellowship of the Ring. So, without further ado, Cisco, take it away.
And for that, I am eternally grateful, because
I want to know what the hell is going on.
Has anyone seen the animated movie Wizards, or at least familiar with it? Like the cover, the guy. Here, I'll throw an image in the chat real quick. I think I just said chat instead of chat, so let's keep that in
You
there.
just shat yourself.
Yeah. It's like a 70s animated feature movie where at the end it's like two wizards are battling, and
No,
one of the
I've
wizards.
never seen this. This is creepy looking.
Oh God.
Maybe we'll watch it at some point, but at the end, the wizards are about to battle, and one of them just goes, "I got a magic spell for you," and he pulls out a fucking gun and shoots the other one, and it's absolutely hilarious.
I
don't
love
know,
it.
this makes
It's
me
Indiana
think
Jones in
about
a
it.
fantasy adventure.
Yeah. Speaking of Saruman, that leads us into the another aspect that I love of the wizarding nature, the way it's depicted in these movies, is when he's trying to stop them through the mountain pass, and you never see him, you can't even hear what he's chanting, but we know that Saruman is commanding the elements to block their path.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah,
what
that
a
really is.
Great little touch.
The magic is usually done well.
And also, what a dick move
Yes.
move for Legolas to just sit there and start walking on the snow as everybody else is trudging. He's just like, let me lightly walk across the snow. Look at what I can do. It's such a dick move.
Yes, I'm such a dainty little elf.
I love that little detail. So well done. That's,
It is a great detail. It just made me laugh because I was like, what an asshole. They're all looking at him like, fuck you, Legolas. Fuck you. Carry us.
I'm gonna throw in a random piece of trivia that's not a big thing, but when they did the filming for this movie, I don't know if y'all realize it, but they brought in hobbits only for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's why you see so much camaraderie between the actors, whether it's on screen or not. And because they made a point, like Peter Jackson was, I want these all to be really close friends. I want them to get along. So like when they all got their group tattoo at the end, that was a huge tip in the cap for everybody involved. That's what they wanted them to happen.
I love that for them, and they still stay in touch.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, yeah.
it's beautiful.
I still get excited every time I see a picture of the four hobbits like going out to Denny's together.
Yeah,
Like
they
it
still
just
do.
it makes me cry. It literally makes me tear up when I see it.
I guarantee you, these motherfuckers get stoned and play video games together all
Oh,
the time. You know,
absolutely.
Elijah Wood is like well known in the Harvest Moon community and that kind of stuff because he's very online and he just travels around and goes to people's islands and checks out their stuff and gives
Yeah,
them.
and ask them politely
Yeah.
if he can have some radishes. Yeah.
I don't know how often he does it. I just remember that news story and I'm like, that's such a Frodo thing to do. Good for you, Frodo. But one thing I would like to point out, we mentioned Orlando Bloom. We mentioned Sean Bean. We haven't mentioned the guy that plays Gimli yet. I just want to draw quick attention to him, John Rhys Davies. Ironically, he's
Indiana Jones's buddy.
Indiana Jones's buddy, and ironically, the tallest actor in the main cast.
Yes.
To the point where when everybody said he not only was he physically imposing, but he has such a big personality from being a stage actor for so many years that according to the Hobbits, they're like, we loved going out with John Rhys Davies. It didn't happen all the time, but when we did, it was one of the few times that we all shut up and listened to him. He would just go on and tell all these stories, and we just nod our head along going, oh, sure. Sounds really interesting, sir. That's the kind of camaraderie
Right.
they had with John Rhys Davies, which that's so cool considering Gimli is such an opposite of that. He's short and he's comic relief, whereas John Rhys Davies is huge and very, very like boisterous, but very serious. Like he's not one to be trifled with.
But I feel like that's how Gimli sees himself.
Yeah, fair enough. He's got a big personality.
How we see ourselves versus how the world sees us. That's
But man, he had such an adverse reaction to the prosthetics that his eyes would
Yeah.
swell up and
Yeah.
he could almost not see out of them. And he had to do fight scenes where he couldn't see anything because like the helmet's in it, like pushing down
Yep.
on his already like closed eyes. And what a trooper!
so they quickly brought in the stunt double to do a lot more work than they needed. They did a lot of ADR and close-ups with John Rhys Davies on short work days for him to keep that down to a minimum. But a lot of the times when you're seeing Gimli on screen doing stuff, you're seeing that backup, the stunt double. What's his? Brett Beatty. or Beatty. I don't know how you say his name, but Brett Beatty, something like that. The reason why I definitely want to bring him up, we never bring up stunt doubles in any of these movies. The big reason why is because the original cast, the Fellowship, they all consider Brett part of the Fellowship. He is as much of the main cast as they are because, like I said, he's there for 85 to 90% of the scenes that you're watching. He's the actor that's actually playing Gimli on screen. He blew out both of his knees in Fellowship of the Ring, and he had to have major surgery done on them, but he was still able to tough it out and did the next two movies after the injury. When the Fellowship went and got their tattoo, Brett Beatty went in Gimli's shoes and Jonathan Rhys Davies did not. And it might seem kind of like rude almost, but I totally understand. John Rhys Davies, his logic was, if I went out and got a tattoo with every cast that I performed with, my body would be a tapestry of ink. And I'm like, okay. All right, sure. He feels that it's an actor's job to leave their body untouched so that they can be used in films better. That when you put stuff on yourself, you're making yourself less versatile.
The
of
blank
an actor.
canvas.
Yeah, it's better for me to be a blank canvas in every way. Which, all right,
I think
cool.
it's time for us to make our way to the classic D&D dungeon, The Mines of Moira. Is it Moria or Moria?
Moria.
Moria. Moira is an Irish woman's name.
The Mines of Moria.
Which we start off on such a classic D&D trope with the puzzle door that you have to get in.
Yes.
Speak friend.
The easiest puzzle in the world. The first time I watched this movie, I was like, just what's the word for friend in these different languages?
Right, yeah.
The first language I would have tried was Dwarven because it was a door for the dwarves. But then we get that classic conversation, which was not here in the books from what I gather. I don't know what they say in the books, but, you know, the living in interesting times, that whole thing that we talked about earlier. And you also get the fucking fool of a toque and Mary throwing rocks into a still body of water next to a dungeon. Like fucking idiots. But
don't
is that even in the book? Because it feels like
they don't know. Yes, it's very much in the book.
Yeah.
They don't know it's a dungeon. They think it's the safe mines.
I mean, it feels like such a throwaway encounter.
Even Gimli is like, my cousins will welcome us with open arms. It's like, no, Gimli.
And ale and food and blah,
the
blah,
giant
blah.
squid outside the Mines of Moria felt like the most throwaway encounter.
The Watcher.
I'm not afraid for anybody. It just took time for them to fight off this
3PO,
beast.
shut down all the trash compactors on the detention level. That's what that scene.
Yeah, but how long is
reminds me
Star
of,
Wars?
Explicitly,
What's the running time for Star Wars versus?
It's not 4 hours. Yeah.
So that's my only thing is that like now watching it, I feel no tension at all. Even the ogre fight that happens in a couple minutes, I did not. I felt more tension there. I didn't feel anything with the, would you call it the Watcher? Is that what it's called in the book or something?
Yeah.
Yes, it's called the Watcher. And the sole purpose of the Watcher is to make sure that they can't go back out.
Yeah, they're in and they're stuck in because it collapses the entry.
Yep. That's why that's there.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
They go into the Mines of Moria. We find out that it's not a mine, it's a tomb.
It's a tomb.
Lots of dead bodies everywhere. Gimli is now a fucking wreck and he's crying everywhere, which understandable. I mean, we start to get a little bit of sympathy for this character now. And I'm glad that in the extended edition, it felt like we lingered on that a little bit more. And I think that was well served because I like Gimli more this time around, than I did. First couple times watching it, I was just like, yeah, Gimli's kind of like annoying and comic relief. He's the C-3PO of this franchise. But now I see him as that made him more fleshed out. So
I will say, finding that book of them reading the journal, the last days of the dwarves, it's very cool, but it just calls to mind that Monty Python thing where they're reading the guy's note and it trails off with he died.
like, why are you spending your time writing? Grab a fucking axe.
It's every note that you find in a video game when you're exploring like a derelict like location, it's like, oh, they're at the door, they're stabbing me to death.
But those are all coming from this from
Sure,
the book.
yes, that's the trope.
Imagine
the
if you
trope
saw a Facebook status and it said, "Oh my God, I'm losing control of my car. I can't." It would be like, "Why are you typing? Why are you put your fucking phone down and drive?" That's part of your problem right there, buddy.
This is where Gandalf absolutely loses his shit against
where he tells Pippin to kill himself.
Yeah.
He literally tells him to kill himself. He tells him throw himself down a fucking ravine so that he can die, so that they don't have to put up with his idiocy anymore.
It's a well.
Next time, throw yourself in.
Fool of a took.
Yeah, Gandalf has entered the chat, KYS.
Gandalf is against the terms and service of every social media platform I exist on. You can't tell somebody to kill themselves, Gandalf.
Maybe if you say it in that flowery way, it's not against the terms and service. Maybe you just have to add all that.
I don't know. I don't want to appeal that. You'll lose your account, man.
The good thing that reading from that book, from that journal, is that line of drums in the deep, and then after he causes all that racket, we get drums in the deep.
The drum.
It's
also the name of the chapter in the book.
It's extremely unnerving, and you know what's coming when you just hear that boom, boom.
Yeah, I enjoyed the fight with the orcs or whatever, the goblins, and the cave troll in the room. That was interesting. I enjoyed that. And you know what? The CGI held up pretty well. You can definitely tell now in Year of Our Lord 2025 that this is old CGI, but it's not bad. It's totally fine. It's totally and it's on the par with, middle Harry Potter movies and stuff like that. So it's fine. But the action itself was really interesting and kind of fun. And you felt really high stakes because you're like, how the hell they're going to get out of here? Now, that all gets deflated.
And also, you learn that Frodo sucks at fighting.
Well, yeah, I
Frodo
mean,
is like the worst
he's
fighter.
a 20-year-old stoner from a small town in Iowa. Like, yeah, he doesn't know how to
but the
fight.
other ones do all right. They all do all right. Frodo's useless.
Well, it kind of takes Frodo getting seemingly killed for them
Twice
to
now.
Step up in their rage.
Frodo death counter. Ding. Here's number 2.
Yeah.
And they play the same music, the same elves. As soon as everything slows into slow motion, the sound cuts out and all we hear are elves singing slowly. I know that, don't worry, everybody's going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine now, except they changed that at the end when Boromir dies.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, not always.
But at this point so far, or now every time I see a main character being threatened to die, I'm like, oh, this is like Walking Dead. You're just going to threaten death every episode and they're going to be fine. So I'm not going to worry too much. But I will say that I'm joking because honestly, when I watched it the first time, I was worried for Frodo. But I will say that the scene right after this, it kind of deflates a lot of the tension that they built up. And then they have to rebuild it back up with the Balrog. And the point I'm making is, so they go back out into the main caverns of Khazad-dûm or whatever it is, where you have those huge vaulted ceilings. What an amazing sight. And you have thousands of these goblins and orcs.
Columns.
And, the columns too. Like, it's just huge as far as the eye can see. We don't even know how big this is. And the fact that dwarves, people that are smaller than the humans, built this huge thing, it totally makes sense for their culture to want to make everything as big as possible, size is probably of great importance to them, being that they're seen as diminutive compared to the other races of the world. So, like, everything is really cool in that way, and all the thousands of goblins and orcs convening on their position, and then they all just wait. And they wait and listen for the sound of the fire demon coming.
Well, they're scared. The goblins too are scared of the Balrog. That's part of.
Yeah,
but like
they start taking off.
The point I'm trying to make is that the goblins are kind of immaterial in this scene. They act like they're going to threaten our heroes, but they make it very quickly known that they're not going to do anything. They're just kind of putting you in a circle. And then as soon as the big bad guy gets here, then they're just going to leave. As soon as I saw none of the goblins even attack any of the heroes. They just make.
That's not true. They're still shooting arrows and stuff at them as they're running across the bridges while the Balrog is chasing them.
Later once the Balrog gets engaged, now you get some of those that are, but in this scene where they're all like, if they were in that big, huge cavern and the goblins were shooting at them, they'd all be dead. They'd all be dead. Maybe Gandalf would have come up with some kind of spell to reflect who knows? I don't know, but they didn't seem to have any way out of that. And that's why I was like, so.
Maybe they all were rolling natural ones. And so
They're all tripping all over themselves.
I want to shout out to that one hero goblin we get a close-up of that has like the huge green eyes with the tiny little black slit irises, just so goblin-like, and just the creature effects design is like everybody was top of their game for all of the special effects. For
Yeah. Oh, a couple things that I missed about the cave troll situation. If you watch that scene again and go back, if we were to rack up who gets what kills, the number one hero for the Fellowship is the cave troll.
Oh yeah.
The cave troll kills more of the orcs and goblins than any of our fucking heroes do. Friendly fire is MVP.
That's the way of cave trolls. They just swing wildly and they don't care who they take out as long as they're not taking out themselves. That's why you shouldn't use a cave troll unless you really need to.
I was happy to see that cave troll continued to get work in Resident Evil 4 and then later in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't see that, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, I've seen the picture and it seemed very similar. I could see it. I also feel that we've skipped over a very, very important part of a conversation just outside of here, but I'm gonna bring us back for just a moment, where Gandalf and Frodo are having the conversation, and Frodo makes a mention about how Bilbo should have killed Gollum.
Yes, Gollum.
And Gandalf kind of looks at him quizzically and says, "Killed him," and Frodo says it's a pity that he didn't end it when he had the chance. And
pity that stayed his hand.
Yes, exactly. And J.R.R. Tolkien in lots of interviews before his passing, and you can see it subtextually even. I think it's clear as day written on the page if these are similar to the things that Gandalf was saying in the story. Pity is one of the core themes of Lord of the Rings, as far as I can tell. Having pity for your enemies, having pity for people that are in lesser situations than you. And not pity as in, oh, poor you. No, real honest sympathy. Honestly feeling pity for somebody and being able to see, like the old line of who do you make peace with if not your enemies? That's the whole point of the word peace, is that you have to look past your differences and you have to see how to bend those bridges and figure that out. Now, if you figure out how to do that, you let me know, because I don't know. But, I think that was a huge moment that we kind of skipped past, and I don't want to spend, obviously it's very bonk on the nose, the moral lesson, but sure. What a great lesson that in these trying times, what can you do? It reminds me of Mr. Rogers talking about when trying times are happening, look around for the helpers. If you look around, you'll see other people. Like, find love in your community. That's what will save you is love for fellow people. So, the Balrog introduces himself, Fire Demon Man, chasing them through the dungeons, and this is where the CGI is a little rough when they're crossing that bridge.
See, and I completely
yeah, me too.
I think every note that I had, like every other note for this section, is the Balrog is fucking cool. Every hint of it we see is so fucking amazing.
I'm not talking about Balrog. I'm not talking about the Balrog. I'm talking about the Fellowship. Okay. When the Fellowship is crossing the bridge and you're looking at their models running across, I swear to God, I could take a video of that and put it next to a video of Rise of the Tomb Raider on the PlayStation 4. Yeah. And Rise of the Tomb Raider looks a million times better. Like, I get it. It's 2000.
Such a brief shot,
it's 2001 or 2004.
It's because they spent so much money on the Balrog.
Yeah, I mean, and at the time, that's what's shocking. That's why I brought it up last episode, is that I remember this movie being seamless with CGI. I didn't even know where the CGI was. And I'm like, oh, there it is. It's right there. And there, and there, and there.
Them running across the bridge,
Yeah, and I can see it clear as day. Does it ruin the movie for me? No. But it's weird how I thought I was kind of immune. Like, I didn't think this would affect me. And then now going back, the years have changed me. Now I've watched everything on 4K and ultra high def and all that shit. So yeah, I see it.
Gandalf versus the Balrog. It's like, it's before there's like a before that scene in cinema and after that scene in cinema. It feels like something now that's always been there. The slamming the staff down on the bridge, shouting "You shall not pass" is like, I mean, you know what I mean? It feels like something that's always been there.
It was a watershed moment.
Yes, it's a classic,
and it's not even in the books.
Yep. Well, it is.
He says it differently.
He does say it differently. He will not pass, I think.
I remember I saw an interview, and they interviewed, what is her name? Philippa. Yeah, one of the same screenwriter I keep talking about. They interviewed her, and they said, "Are there any times that you wonder if you could have J.R.R. Tolkien back? Any scenes that you would point at and go, are you okay with that change? Are you okay with that change?" And she brought up a couple classics that people always bring up with her. One of which being this scene where he says, "You shall not pass," and she says that she felt that the original wording was a little bit less direct and aggressive, and she felt just changing a couple words made it very clear that you are not getting past this point.
And he says it twice.
Yeah.
And the second time with the emphasis is just like, boom, motherfucker.
Yeah. There's no way you're getting past this thing, this line that I have drawn. You cannot best this at all. And like, it's so then anyway, so she makes this change behind the scenes and she delivers the lines to Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen playing Gandalf. And Ian McKellen looks over the lines and he comes to see her a little bit later and says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And she tells the story brilliantly. And she's like, "Yes, what's up?" And he's like, well, I noticed with this scene that you're using slightly different words than are on the page." And she's like, "Yep, we decided to go a slightly different direction. Do you have thoughts about that?" And he goes, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, well, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try and see how it works out, that kind of thing. And I remember I was taught at a young age in the theater that interesting is another way of saying, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. If you say, "Hey, what did you think of that thing I did earlier?" I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting choice. Yeah, and it was interesting. Even that made me think.
Not unlike when somebody says your child is precious. Oh, what a precious baby.
Yeah, it's one of those compliments where you don't know what to say, so you're trying to be polite, but it's interesting. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it's good, but it's interesting.
And what a banger fucking line it is.
Yeah, and it ends up being like, and he did it. And you look at that guy on that screen and tell me that he saw a line, disagreed with it, so he gave it half-assed. No, that should be assigned to everybody that works in an artistic project. If your project director or the people that you are working with voted to go in a different direction, don't just half-ass it. Do it. Do it fucking to the best of your ability, because you don't know. Years later, that might be the fucking thing that you're remembered for.
Well, and if it sucks totally, at least you did it 100%, and then they can't blame it on you.
Yeah. Why would you not at least fucking try? You're only poisoning your own well if you don't give it a whirl.
I give Frodo a lot of shit, but his scream of Gandalf's name when he's pulled down, it's I think it might be slightly in slow motion, but still it's just that like you can
sobbed.
And his "Fly You Fools," where his hair gets blown out in front of that's so well done.
I sobbed so hard watching that. Probably at least 7 of the 13 times I went.
And fuck, man, they're all crying when they're
even
out
now
on the rocks.
I tear up.
Afterwards.
I'm teared up right now.
Yeah. It's a heavy fucking scene, and it's like
this scene finally delivered a death, or this movie finally delivered a death, and it was a big one.
And if you don't know the story, you're really not expecting that one.
Right.
And, it's, maybe you would be if you know tropes, but again, it's the thing that sets the trope of Obi-Wan Kenobi falling in battle so that the others can get away. The wise wizard is the one who sacrifices himself.
And from what I gather from people that have read the books, and I might be wrong, I don't know, I would ask your opinion maybe when you get a little bit further, Keith, or whatever, but Gandalf in the books does die here.
Yes.
Like when he comes back as Gandalf the White, he may look like Gandalf, but he doesn't even remember conversations that he had with people.
Not at first. He regains that, but when
over
he's
time,
fresh. Yeah, he's reborn fresh. He is Gandalf the White. He is still Gandalf, but it's almost like a clean slate at first until his memory.
Like he's confused about his name when he first comes out. People are asking him Gandalf. He's like, Gandalf. Oh, people did call me that once upon a time.
Yeah.
It's like, last week, dude. it was not.
And it's like for him, who knows how long it's been, right?
Yeah.
He could have lived eons in the other realm or whatever before returning.
Once you figure out why he comes back as Gandalf the White, that kind of almost, I mean, I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, but that kind of breaks the story because that shows you that the god of the universe is not going to let Sauron win. That's the god of the universe putting his finger on the scale and going, no.
Yeah, right.
No, Gandalf can't die. That's not the way we do this. Oh, well, I'll slay Gandalf in this way. No, then I'll make 3 of him. You know, like there's literally nothing you can do to counteract me right now. At some point, I can literally just come in and go, Sauron, gone. You're done. You're done.
But that's not the way gods work, you know, so.
Nope, he tries to stay out of it, but again, once he tips his hand and he puts his finger on the scale with Gandalf, it's made known that this universe, I mean, obviously the average viewer, the average reader is not reading that into it. But once you know the meta narrative, you're like, oh, that's where God basically made his commitment. That's where Sauron should have been like, oh, fuck. If he's directly involving himself in such a major way, in such a direct way, there's nothing I can do to win this.
Well, let's get to first, before we get to Lothlorien, let's talk about the creation of the Uruk-hai, and we see the Industrial Revolution happening in Isengard. I don't know if this is said anywhere. It's not said in the books, but it really looks to me like orcs are birthed from filth and shit. Did you get that impression of it actually being excrement?
Sacks of mud and shit.
Mud and soot and
yeah,
waste.
but I mean, there's like fucking, I could swear there's corn. Like there's chunks
Oh my
of
God,
corn.
wow.
You need to leave.
There's no corn.
Wow.
It is very much like the death of the earth. So there's mud and there's soot and there's ash and there's waste. Yes.
You know, I thought we were going to do Lord of the Rings in a very respectful, mature, professional way.
You dumb bastard.
But
And now we are talking about corn and shit. So you're saying the Uruk-hai are just like turds popping out of the butt of
I mean,
Sauron's world?
Doesn't it make sense? Like they're so vile and evil creatures. Like I don't know. It always felt it always looked like shit to me. Like I know, sure, yes, there's mud, but just like not specifically just shit, but like bile, filth, like whatever.
Waste.
You just wanted there to be some shit involved. It made you more comfortable with there was a little bit of poo.
Yes, it's
Let's say
waste.
waste.
It's waste.
You just want a little bit of poo in your fantasy stories.
Yes. I want my evil bad guys to be birthed from shit. Is that so wrong?
There's got to be a better way to say that.
I guess not. I mean, did you ever see Dogma?
Yeah,
shit demon.
That's a lot what it reminds me of, honestly.
Howdy ho, Mr. Frodo.
This is where Boromir picks up the ring for the first time?
Yes. Yep. Because it
Right
falls
after
off.
Gandalf?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Is it before or after Gandalf dies? But it's when they're in the snow at some point.
Yeah. I think it's before Gandalf dies. I think it's before they enter the mines. Because there's no
I think it's when they're
after.
practicing and stuff. Yeah. Boromir has kind of resisted the pull of the ring once. Like, he did it with a lot of social sanction. A lot of the people were staring at him and giving him dirty looks.
And yet you
yelling
can
at
still
him.
see the trepidation of him even handing it away. You know,
Yeah.
You have to think.
He's
about
had
it
the ring
a
for
second.
all of 3 seconds, and it's already getting its fingers in its skull. So we get to see the entire party mourn the loss of Gandalf, and we get to see the Uruk-hai being born, and then after that, our party is going to Lothlorien, right? Lothlorien.
Yes.
Lothlorien.
And they have to get there before night falls when the goblins and orcs will be covering these hills.
Is it just always night in Lothlorien? Do we ever see daytime?
Time moves differently in Lothlorien.
You're deep in the
Very
woods.
Specific in the books.
When you're deep in the woods, it does feel very dusky all the time.
Well, but I mean, it's nighttime. Like, they can't see without lights.
It's out of time,
Mm-hmm.
I think is fairer to say.
They're out of time, so they gotta hurry. We are out of time.
They entered at night, and thus, when they are there, it is nighttime.
They leave during the day.
Yes.
When they're leaving Lothlorien, it is daytime.
That entire thing being at night, but it adds that element of, like, again, how many of the tropes of elves do we get from this story?
All of
Just
them.
fantasy tropes in general, because you have your dwarves are Art Deco and your elves are Art Nouveau. Like it's
Yeah.
clear as day, you know.
But, like, even the point of, like, there are 2 different types of elves. You have the elves that live in the trees, that have bows and arrows that are, you're thinking browns and greens. and lots of furs and that kind of stuff. Then you have the other elves, which you're thinking white and clear and pearlescent and crystal, and and they exist in these ivory towers, and they dispense their wisdom like Vulcans and Star Trek kind of thing. Like, I'm a firm believer that Vulcans in Star Trek are a race of elves. It's space elves.
They have the pointy ears.
As much as it pains me to admit it, it's true. And the Romulans are the space wood elves, or the space dark elves, because Romulans and Vulcans are very similar in Star Trek. So, anyways.
Galadriel's voice is just fucking amazing. From giving us the intro speech, the way she talks just sounds like an otherworldly, wise know-it-all being.
That you don't hate for being a know-it-all.
Yeah, it's like a soothing almost. Like, oh, I feel safe with this person.
Gimli's crush on her is totally adorable, and it is wholesome.
I have something to say about that. I think it's also a little bit creepy, and so
As long as she's okay with it, and she seems to be what's the word, like, honored by it.
Yeah.
She is
honored by it, and she shows it by giving him the 3 hairs, because there's a lot of lore behind that.
The only time we see emotion on her face is when the ring is presented to her, and when Gimli pays her a compliment that it makes her openly blush in front of everybody. And that is fucking adorable.
I have a rant about this. Let me get through it. So it's another smart move on Peter Jackson, the way that is revealed. You cannot film her saying, and what would you like, and him saying, well, can I have some of your hair, like brother, it's so weird and creepy. So the way they show it with it's never said, but it's like, they're in the boat later, and Legolas asks, so what did you ask for? And Gimli smiles, and he says something like, I asked for a lock of the hair from her golden head, and she gave me 3, but we don't see the interaction specifically of him asking for it.
Yeah, we see him saying, no, I couldn't. I can't.
Yeah.
It's too weird. Or something, however he says it.
It has the same vibes of if you're like, so what did you ask for? And it smash cuts to like his face buried in her feet, like huffing.
Or like the guy from Charlie's Angels, when he cuts off the hair and he's like holding the hair and he's sniffing it.
Yeah, it's a little pervy.
Well, what did you ask for? A dirty pair of her underwear.
Right. So it's a smart move in the way that is revealed, because you just can't show him being like, oh, can I have 3 of your hairs, please? Like, it's just it's.
I don't know if you all realize this, but the elves were filmed in slow motion, while the rest of the cast are filmed in standard FPS mode or whatever.
I did not know that. That is a piece of info that I was not aware of.
Yeah, they're filmed in slow motion and they had to ADR their own lines on top of it, so that their movements would just look a little bit alien to human eyes. And awesome. I think it's such a subtle effect. Like, now that I've told you, if you go back and watch it, you'll see like, even the way their hair moves, it doesn't quite fall the way our hair falls. It looks a little bit more graceful than our hair.
Yeah, like when they turn their head and it just kind of floats like outward.
Yeah, that's because they filmed them in slow motion and then they had them ADR their lines afterwards. And it makes their lines even have a weird cadence to them, that they're not quite as quick as they meant to say them when they said them.
Yeah, they sound a little drunk.
Yeah, and that's intentional. And the line that I wrote for this is, elves are aliens, and they should be.
Right.
We've mentioned Lord of the Memes. One of my favorite NSFW memes comes from Galadriel, where it says, you can block my number, you can unfriend me, but you can never unlick my butthole, and it's her eyes all super wide. I'll throw it in the chat just so it
Thanks for that. That's what I needed to see. That's what's gonna make my Sunday complete.
Oh my
I do
God,
hate to say,
that she gets very, I can't unsee that. We'll have to release that on the social media so everybody can see that.
The clip of her when she's refusing the ring and it turns all blue and stuff. It would be a really cool scene if it hadn't come so close after the Balrog, which was just way better.
What does he do with her hair when he gets it?
Mm-hmm.
What does he do with it?
He ties it around his wiener.
No.
I don't know.
he uses it as a light source, if I remember correctly. Like, it is a light source and comfort.
I don't remember. If he uses it in the books, I have not gotten
I'm pretty sure it is a comforting light source.
How do you even keep 3 hairs? Like you'd
In
have
a
to like
vial.
spin them together and put them in and then hope that vial doesn't break, even though you're falling off of cliffs and in battles and wars all the time. Like that's why I'm like, what does he do with it? Like, does he every once in a while just take it out and sniff it, or does he just look at it? Or?
I'll look that up. I want to say maybe he braided it into his beard.
He promises to keep it into the hair and crystal as a symbol of goodwill between the wood and mountain until the end of days.
Oh, there you go. Okay, nice.
I have a couple little small pieces of trivia that I want to point out that we've gone past, but my notes remind me of a couple things. One, when they're in the scenes where they're going towards the Mines of Moria, and even the scenes afterwards, they had to fly a lot of the actors up to these mountaintops in New Zealand. And the classic way that they would go up is with helicopters. And 3 of the hobbits were very much wanting the helicopter pilot to do weird tricks and stuff like that. Sean Astin, the man that plays Sam, was not a big fan of this. And when they asked him, he was like, it's not because I'm afraid. It's just like, they weren't being responsible. And I was trying to get them to like, and it's like, oh my God, these guys are their characters outside.
They are so their characters.
Yeah. An interesting thing that happens though is Sean Bean is wildly afraid of flying, especially helicopter flying. So he would literally walk the entire path up, and he would wear his armor. Yeah, he would wear his armor and march all the way up. And there's something to be said about all those scenes and especially the scenes with the Uruk-hai at the end of this first movie, those scenes up on the mountain now, he looks disheveled. All that armor looks like he's been sweating a while in it. And there's something, and it's so well done. Same with Aragorn, but then again, Aragorn had his weird things where, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he took his sword with him everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, like to restaurants.
Yes.
And shit,
Restaurants, to friend's house, he would always just have his sword on him because that felt in care. And I'm like, thank you. Yes, let's normalize people carrying swords in every day.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
The bigger, the better.
Yeah. Also, in the Mines of Moria, a small piece of trivia is that Viggo Mortensen, while they were at this point in the filming and they were about to do the cave troll fight, he was a big surfer at the time. He's one of those people that likes to take a lot of chances and go like climb mountains and shit like that. Like
Most of the cast
of me. Yeah. So like he's out surfing and he wiped out big time and he bonked his face off of the water, and the whole, I think it was right side of his face was covered in a huge fucking bruise. So they were coming in to do the Mines of Moria scenes, and they try to send him to makeup to get it done, and the makeup can only do so much with the severe amount of bruising that Viggo has all over just one side of his face. It always looks unnaturally like, and so they said, you know what, we're just going to go ahead with filming the scenes. So if you watch the scenes with the caves in the Mines of Moria, Aragorn is only filmed from one side the entire time.
The left side.
That's what I think it is.
Side.
Yeah, the left side. Yep. That's, and you know what? I never noticed that. So that just shows you movie magic. Your brain fills in the blank spots.
Just to go back to normalizing carrying your sword, that I felt that, cause it's like, I feel if you were in a subway and somebody came in with like, a gun strapped to their hip, I'd be like, I'm slightly like, okay, that's whatever. Right. But if someone came in carrying a sword on their back, I'd be excited, like, ooh, what's this guy's story?
What's your story? Where are you going?
But you do it. Hilarious in the American version of hilarious is that it's probably illegal in almost every state to open carry a sword.
Yeah, cops will surround you and draw guns on you if you're open carrying your sword, while 16 people walk by with AK-47s strapped to their back.
Another little small trivia thing that this is, I don't know where to put this in the story, so I'm just going to tell you all right now, that at the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he gave replicas of the One Ring to Frodo, Elijah Wood, and Andy Serkis, and he told each of them that it was the only one. Just as a little joke that they'd figured out someday when they finally revealed it to the other one, they realized they both had the one. Which also, that's a little bit of storytelling and how you're giving a gift too, because they both had the One Ring and they thought they were going to be the, like
precious.
Yeah, they were both precious to each of them.
I have a replica of the One Ring in my possession. I wore mine. Mine's tarnished because I did wear it for a long time.
I think I have one too on my bookshelf.
Man, I'm the only one without a ring.
Wait, no, it's here. In my pocket.
I see what you did there.
A couple music themes I want to touch on real quick. When we get to Rivendell, the only reason I'm talking about Rivendell is because the difference between Rivendell and Lothlorien. Rivendell, we have a lot of harps. It's very uplifting. You have angelic voices. Rivendell. That's in the story. It's very uplifting for our characters. And I don't know, maybe Rivendell should not be seen less as that uplifting. Maybe the chorus, the lament of the elves as they're walking through the forest, is a better way to kind of embody where the elves are at as a culture right now. It's a little bit more sad because they're leaving the lands of the Middle Earth. But Rivendell, anyways, so is very uplifting, very happy, very romantic, and look at all the beauty around you and be happy and calm and that kind of stuff. But then we get to Lothlorien, and that is very choral. It's very heavy on a chorus of voices, maybe even more into 6 parts. I don't know, but you got these very, very heavy vocal arrangements that are legato, and they feel like the feeling you get from is like mystery, but like an ancient mystery that is not meant to be solved anymore.
Ethereal, yes.
Yeah, but it also feels a little unsafe, where like with the elves from Rivendell early on, when we're hearing them going through the forest, that feels like I shouldn't be hearing this, but because it's a private moment. Whereas the Lothlorien elves feels like I shouldn't be hearing this because hearing this could put me in danger. This feels like I'm not welcome here.
I love that you got that from the music, because the truth of the matter is that the Lothlorien elves are a little more secluded and divorced from the rest of Middle Earth.
I wonder, and I didn't have time to look it up, but I wonder if there is a guitar player out there that that has done a cover of the Dwarven themes from Lord of the Rings.
I can just guarantee you that there is.
If Led Zeppelin was writing Misty Mountain Bop or whatever, Misty Mountain Hop back in the 70s, then there should, if not, then somebody needs to get on that stat. Somebody get in there, do the Dwarf themes from Lord of the Rings with some heavy metal guitar and some kick-ass drums behind it.
I mean, it fits, right? Dwarven music in modern times would be metal. It's like how Klingons will make metal,
Absolutely. They're all in the same vibe. They're all the same. Yep. Absolutely.
Sauron would make industrial metal.
Yeah, there you go. KMFDM.
Trent Reznor would. Trent Reznor and Attica Ross at their worst are doing the Sauron work. Hey, they're just doing it for the money, man. You can't blame them.
That kind of brings us to the last leg of it, where they leave Lothlorien and the boats, and when they get to the shore, that's when everything falls apart.
Can we briefly talk about the gifts to each one of them?
Sure.
How sad is Sam?
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about Sam's.
Yeah, poor Sam.
He gets the rope and he's like, I guess you ran out of those nice daggers.
It comes in so handy.
Dude, why didn't the elves be like, here, buddy, you can just have another dagger. Like, it's not magical, but it's a dagger if you're really all that worried about it.
Yeah, he's trying to be so polite about it. But
yeah.
A rope, huh? Great. Thank you.
But also the other side of that, what a rude dick. Like, you just gave him some magic rope and he's like, hey, can I have one of those knives? No, you can't. As a matter of fact, give me the rope back. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Merry Christmas,
socks.
bitch.
He just got socks for Christmas, yeah.
Talk about not being happy. You're welcome. What about all those fucking fruits that you just ate a little bit ago? You're welcome.
Yeah.
They leave, and then that's where we get to the big fight scene at the end, which I'm just going to throw this random fact out there because I just saw it on my page as I'm talking about a fight scene coming up. Somebody went through and counted the number of deaths in this movie, and from start to finish, it's 118.
Awesome.
118 deaths total, and probably a lot of them happening in this final scene.
And the mines. Those would be the two places.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, we have Frodo making up his mind after his conversation with Galadriel, which, maybe we should talk about that for a second too. Cause I love the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, that he has to look up to get over the ledge. And as the audience, we can't see what's in there either.
Yeah.
But then we see the what do they call it? The reaving of the Shire, or what is it called in the books? You haven't gotten there, so you
sacking. The sacking of the Shire.
Sacking of the Shire,
yeah. Where in the books, after, at this minor spoiler, but at the end of the entire trilogy, when they go back to the Shire, it's being occupied by Saruman and Wormtongue or somebody else, or I forget who. And they have to kill them.
Saruman and Wormtongue.
Yeah, and they have to kill them and take back the Shire from a lot of the, Uruk-hai and stuff like that. It's their last big fight.
Fucking end already!
Yeah.
Which is where Merry, he makes his big stand, which makes me sad that they cut it up.
Well, he gets to work with the Rohirrim and stuff like that. In 2 and 3. So he and it's funny that all the hobbits become heroes in a different kingdom, kind of.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, showing you that spreading your culture and getting to know other people's cultures is good. Diversity is a good thing. But so we have where he sees the sacking of the Shire, and this, she tells him the 3 things that you can see are things that have happened, things that are happening, or things that have not yet come to pass. So that implies that that third option is going to happen. So at some point the Shire is going to burn. Mm-hmm. We just never see it on screen.
Right.
Well, I also feel that there's a little window of opportunity in the things that have not yet come to pass that you could potentially change them.
That's why they're not. She doesn't say "in the future." It's things have not yet come to pass because you can change them.
Tell me, Advocate, isn't it possible?
So that we have them going up the hill after they're running up that hill to have a talk with God. And Frodo has made up his mind to leave because seeing this forthcoming future and realizing that the Fellowship, none of them can be truly trusted. And it's like he hasn't fully made up his mind, and he goes up the hill. Boromir follows him and helps him make up his mind.
I love how he's just like, oh, I'm casually picking up sticks here. Fancy running into you here, Frodo.
Yeah, and immediately throws him on the ground.
I don't have any sticks in my hand except for the one I just picked up.
Yeah, Boromir chases him down and basically says, hey, you, give me the ring. I guess the ring finally got its claws in Frodo. Maybe the ring saw what Frodo was seeing and realized that if he let go of the Fellowship, he had less chance of getting to himself. So he wants Boromir, so he pushes out to him more. Who knows how all this shit works? But either way, Boromir fails the fucking test, and this is where Boromir...
Moment of weakness, yep.
Yeah, and I feel bad that I worry that a lot of people watching this movie walk away with the idea that Boromir is a bad person because of this, because he did betray Frodo at the end. It's
his acting performance is actually very good and very subtle, so I could actually see some people perceiving that as pretend crocodile tears. I always took it as he's instantly, genuinely remorseful for what he's done.
I did too, but then I had already read the books, so that might be a different take.
I don't think I did the first time I watched it. I think I hated Boromir. I think I'm kind of talking to my former self when I'm saying these things, because I know that there are people that exist in that realm, because I probably was one of them. I've grown to the point where now I realize what a tragic but overall positive character. Even the scenes later in Two Towers and Return of the King or whatever, where we see him being a brother to Faramir. It seems like he was a good brother. Their dad sucked, but their brotherly relationship seems like it was pretty good.
Yeah. And even if in that scene you thought wow, what an asshole, the way he goes out protecting the hobbits is a redemptive moment for sure, right?
Yes. And it's such a, he's so...
What a badass.
Yeah, it's
those
so
huge
grisly
fucking
too.
Arrows sticking out.
Yeah, dude,
they had weight to them.
How big are they? They're an inch in diameter. The rods.
Yeah, so
arrows.
When they were doing that scene with the arrows sticking out of him, those arrows were so heavy that they were pulling at the fiberglass thing that they were sticking to underneath his shirt, and they were going to change the size of the arrow, and he said, no, let's film the scene with heavier fiberglass, and he took on the extra weight and had a bigger impact because he wanted that to have that heft, and it showed. And Sean Bean eventually went on the record to say that this, out of all the many, many, many deaths of Sean Bean, this is his favorite death scene. This is one
he at least has a moment to be like, you know, let me be remembered, and he hands him his sword and shit. You know, he doesn't get that in his other deaths. He's just unceremoniously dispatched.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
Yep. And he goes out a hero.
The mutual respect that they finally share on screen.
Yep.
Because they've been a little at odds, you know, with each other, Aragorn and Boromir.
Especially after it's revealed that, like, who Aragorn is.
But it's mostly Boromir, and we see that a lot of times, because of course Aragorn is perfect. It's not his fault.
Right.
He's Kermit the Frog. He's Mickey Mouse. He's the hero of the universe, of the world, of everything.
And can do no wrong.
I'm always employee of the month. I'm employee of the year, of the century, of the universe. You should be so lucky to have a job like mine.
And that's why this is a redeeming moment if you allow your heart to be open to Boromir, that this is where you realize that, sorry, man, I'm an asshole. Yeah, you were, but I forgive you. You know, like, we're all assholes sometime. Well, maybe not me, because I'm Aragorn and I'm perfect, but everybody, the rest of you mortal plebs, you all deal with this from time to time.
Aragorn has one moment where he's an asshole in the movies, in the next movie.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Sam's line when Frodo's in the boat and he's marching out after him, when Frodo says, I'm leaving by myself, and Sam says, of course you are, and I'm coming with you.
Yes.
You're going by myself. Yes, and I'm coming with you. It's such it's like, that is Sam to the T, like, distilled character. I love it.
The other thing I want to talk about with Viggo Mortensen is one of those urban myths that have erupted over the years. And as far as I can tell, it is completely false. But there's this urban myth that during the scene where the Uruk-hai, what's his name? Lutz or something, I think is his name in the book. He throws a short sword or a big dagger, a dirk or something at Aragorn, and Aragorn bats it out of the air. And the urban myth is that the actor that threw that was not supposed to throw it at him. That was supposed to throw it off to the side, but he accidentally threw it at him. And Viggo Mortensen, being the badass that he is, was able to knock it away. Which, from what I can tell, that is not the case. From what I gathered, the actor that was throwing the dagger and Viggo Mortensen were practicing for a few hours before the scene, and the scene didn't necessarily call for them to do it, but he had thrown it at him so many times, and Viggo could knock it out of the air with regular occurrence, and he's like, dude, just do it on camera. I'm sure I'll be fine. And they did it, and it looks fine. And you can tell that Viggo Mortensen knows what he's doing. Yeah, because he fucking practiced with the actor for like 2 hours beforehand.
Also, quick note, since we're talking about that, we mentioned that Viggo Mortensen replaced the actor who had already been cast and I think filmed a couple of scenes. And so he did not have the benefit of swordsman training. But by the end of the trilogy, the guy who had trained him has declared that Viggo Mortensen is the best swordsman he's ever trained in his career.
I can see it. He looks like the kind of person that would do that. That's why a lot of these Fellowship of the Ring, if they were in a different movie, but in the same location, they would have been doing a lot of the same shit with each other. You know, they still would have been like horseback riding and shooting archery and going skydiving and riding in helicopters and, you know.
Yeah. Literally all the same shit is what they're doing in between the takes and stuff. Like,
they just happen to be working on a movie that completely fit a lot of the talents that they had for doing good casting, good production value, good costuming, good music, good story to begin with, amazing world that the story was built on. This is like, we talk about perfect storm in movies or in books or anything. Like, you have to have the perfect storm of events to really catch fire and weave gold out of straw. But this, oh my God. That's why this is a generational event. That's why this movie coming out was such a big fucking deal that it changed the world in a lot of ways. Like, I am so impressed with everything top down. And I don't know, I didn't mean to wax poetic out of nowhere about the overall quality of this film and the trilogy in general, but it's
that's
just
what we're here for. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, when we get to the culmination of this and when those credits roll, I was so thirsty for more, but I probably had to pee, like we talked about. But I also felt like, wow, I have been through a lot. I need to process this. Like, Sam's weariness at the end of each movie, I can feel that. Like, I feel like John Coffey saying, "I'm tired, boss." Like, you know, God, you feel, yes, it was 3 movies of them walking, and boy, are my legs tired, and that's remarkable considering I've been sitting down for the whole thing. You know?
Right? Yeah. It's all, man. It's also kind of unique in this, like, this setup initial movie. It's true of the books too, but it has the Empire Strikes Back downer ending where the Fellowship is broken and several of our cast members have died, and what's going to happen? The hobbits are on their own now. The other hobbits have been kidnapped. Like, this is the first movie, and we already have the cliffhanger Empire Strikes Back ending of Doom. Yeah.
Well, and funny enough, the ending of this movie was actually the story for the beginning of the Two Towers.
Yes.
Which I'm sure both you know, I'm not telling you anything, but just to clarify that we are aware that, like, the ending of the Fellowship of the Ring ended with Lothlorien, right?
No, they have
left
before?
Lothlorien.
Boromir's death is where
No.
where the first
Round 1. Fight.
No, the Boromir dies in Two Towers.
The first paragraph is Two Towers.
No.
Yes.
I just read it. I'm telling you. I promise.
Hold on, I'm looking this up. What
Me too, because I
does
swear that
Boromir
he does not.
die?
The battle starts.
He's buried at the beginning.
His
of
death
Two
occurs
Towers.
at the beginning of the second novel in the trilogy, Two Towers.
Yep.
Boromir does not die in the first book, The Fellowship of the
The
Ring.
battle starts.
The first chapter of the Two Towers relates how Boromir died. He dies off camera.
Yes. Yeah, like that. The scene that it happened, but it's related. I could have sworn it was in.
I know. Because I remember I hadn't read the Two Towers.
Because that whole
Yet.
battle, we never see that battle in the book from the battle perspective. We hear about it afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And they decided to
Interesting.
film it.
You win. Perfect.
It's crazy how the movie shapes, because I can match the words, you know, and the paragraphs to what's on screen.
Well, you were probably reading the books back to back too. Like when you got done with
uh-huh.
Fellowship, you probably loaded up the next one right away and continued the next one. So,
I remember because I hadn't reread the Two Towers yet, and I was shocked that he died, and then I remembered that he did die. But
I stand corrected. Crazy the power of.
But I think it's
memory
very
and film.
understandable because like we said, it's kind of off camera. So you saying, well, it happened right at the end. You're saying it happened after the end of book 1, and Jamie's saying, well, no, it happened before the beginning of book 2, and you're both right. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because technically it doesn't happen in the books at all. We just hear about it from the characters
Well,
afterwards.
they find him with the arrows in him.
Yeah.
We don't see the stand.
right, and you don't get the.
Oh, is he still alive?
He
they find
does.
him?
He does have his final words. Yeah. with them, yeah.
Okay. So that wasn't invented for
No.
the screen or anything either.
Before we ask our big 3 questions, I do have a new question just for this one.
Okay.
Who in the Fellowship are you? First of all, who do you want to be, and then who are you really?
Oh God.
Let's start with Keith.
I'm Bilbo.
Okay.
And what was the other part of the question?
Who do you want to be? Who would you, like, when you were watching it, who are you like, that's who I would want to be? And then...
I mean, fucking Aragorn.
Okay.
Like, how could you not? Or Gandalf. I could see Gandalf's pretty cool enough to want to be.
Kel?
Oh, well, I've always been like a little bit of a broad-shouldered guy my whole life, and I've had friends in the past say that I remind them of a dwarf. I'm not short. I'm like 5'9", so I'm like in the middle. I'm average, but I've got like really broad shoulders and arms and stuff. And so like, because of that, my whole life I have fantasized about elves. It's whatever you're not, that's what you're always drawn to. Like I have kind of curly, wavy hair, so people that have straight hair, I'm like, oh, that's so hot to me. I'm always been kind of stocky, so people that are skinny are weirdly attractive to me because I've never been that kind of thing, you know. So I've always wanted to be an elf, the opposite of what I am. So I guess you could say, in some sense, my whole life I've wanted to be Legolas, but I'm a Gimli. But I have to answering that question later on in my life. I'm right there with Keith that I want to be Aragorn. I want to be the perfect human. I want to be Captain Picard. I want to be Superman. I want to be a good moral person with the skills and the power to back up my convictions and help people. Yeah, like that's why when we play these video games like the Star Wars, The Old Republic, I have a hard time playing a bad guy because I want to help people even in this invisible abstract world that isn't real. I want to help people. That's my power fantasy, is being a good person. They're right there. There's my power fantasy, being a good person. I can't do it in real life. So
What about you, Jamie? Who are you and who do you want to be?
I totally wanted to be like Mary, like just a not completely brainless hobbit, but one that didn't, was pretty carefree and pretty easygoing, had a good time, quick with a joke. But I'm Gimli, and I'm not even talking like the physical aspect of it. Gimli's personality is my personality. Like, he's very proud. He's very short-tempered. There's even a line he uses, and I'm not sure exactly where it is in the trilogy, but where he says that he's wasted over long distances. I am really fast in a dash, but good God, I cannot run if you make me run any length of time. Like, I am Gimli.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. That's me. 100%.
Every line he said where he's like talking about how great the dwarves are and the works that they've done and all these things. I'm like, yeah, I am so Gimli. I'm Gimli.
Sometimes with my video games, I'm like Gollum.
So this is kind of an interesting one. What's the popcorn bucket for this movie? There's not a clear 100% like front runner,
right.
I don't think, that presents itself.
I was trying to think of a notable death, and the only death that really popped into my mind, don't ask me why right now, but when the Nazgul are breaking into Bree and they just crush that poor man underneath the door.
Yeah.
He is just a fucking pancake. Yeah. Nothing to do with anything, but I don't know.
I'm trying to think, like, when they're running with their ill-gotten food from the farmer maggot's crops.
Oh, you could make it just look like a normal popcorn bucket, but like draw on the sides and make it for Bilbo's 111th birthday.
The cake.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and have cake.
Yep.
Or you could kind of shape it like a cake. Yeah, either way. But yeah, something about Bilbo's 111th birthday. That way it doesn't spoil anything in the story. So it's just like you're attending the party with them.
Yeah. Okay, I like it.
What about our classic, wonderful group of zany heroes, the Muppets? If we were to do Lord of the Rings Muppet style, who's the human amidst all the Muppets?
It's either Gandalf or
I go with Gandalf. I totally go with Gandalf.
I was thinking even Elrond would be a good way. He just shows up for a couple scenes. Otherwise, it's all
Muppet.
And all of his incredulous looks looking around like, what is wrong with you? Makes even more sense. Yeah. But then again, human Gandalf telling a Muppet to kill itself would also be very funny. So
I just, I see Aragorn. I see Kermit as Aragorn. So, you can't make it Aragorn.
Yeah.
Because who else would Kermit be? Kermit is Aragorn.
Well, think about also how wholesome of a story that is have Lord of the Rings trilogy and everybody's a Muppet except Aragorn is played by Viggo. And Viggo is just risking everything to help these poor fucking Muppets. Yeah, that would be a classic hero. And that explains why he's so much stronger and better than everybody, because he's a real fucking human and he's fighting Muppets and puppets. Yeah. But imagine what the Uruk-hai would look like with Jim Henson's group.
Very cool. Them. Yeah.
Ooh, talking like with those Skeksis kind of ish designs. Everything looks gross and the portions are all wrong and wonderful. All right. So the last question is.
Wait, hang on. I just want to put, since it's still on the Muppet thing. If Aragorn is the human, the touching scene of him putting the sword in Muppet Boromir's hand and he's telling him he's his king as a new. Silly flavor over it. Yeah.
I'm dying of a cavity right now from thinking about that.
Right.
How is that even? God bless you, Sean Bean, but I think even you would be behind this idea that a Muppet playing your part would be really fucking heartwarming.
Yeah.
Who would be the Boromir then? Gonzo or Fonzie?
I think
Fozzie. Why do I keep calling him Fonzie? Arthur Fonzarelli.
When I'm thinking of this question, I'm not thinking of it as the Muppets the Muppets that we know. I'm thinking specific Jim Henson Muppets of the cast members.
Oh, see, I'm thinking of a lot of them made of the cast, but our heroes, some of the Muppets are playing the major roles.
Right, because that's how it would be.
I could see either or, but so.
Like the eagle guy playing Gandalf or something.
Fozzie's a good one for Boromir.
Sweetums would be Gandalf.
I would have followed you, Kermit. All right. So who is your MVP for book one? Who is your favorite character or favorite piece of armor or whatever you decide to ring as your MVP, your number one, numero uno?
I gotta go with the Balrog because like I cannot overstate how many notes I have of how fucking cool that effect is, where you don't really see the whole thing. It's just shadow and little bits of light, and then what you do see is just so well done. Is the Balrog.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with because we didn't really talk about it, so I'll use this as an excuse to talk about that scene. The lead Uruk-hai that fights with Aragorn at the end when he like pulls himself further on the sword and then he chops his fucking head off. Yeah, he's fucking cool. That's a cool villain. Like even in death, he's like, "Fuck you," you know.
So my MVP, I'm gonna have to split it. Well, just to do an honorable mention, my MVP for this is Sean Bean. I think he, and specifically Sean Bean, because he made a Boromir that, as a casual viewer that knew nothing about this, my first viewing, I kind of didn't like him, and then I grew to like him more as it went. And it wasn't that his character went through so much character development. It's that I saw layers within the person, and it, it's just, it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say that it changed me and made me see people differently, but it's just one of those pieces of art that is, that is the preponderance of evidence that this is how you should treat fellow humans kind of thing. Like, I think his acting was brilliant. And I'm going to throw in a little nod to Pip because his comedy really keeps this movie going in a lot of ways.
His quest.
That whole fellowship
Journey. Thing.
Wait! We're coming too! We'll have to send us all tied up in a sack to stop it.
Anyway, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission. Quest. Thing.
Well, that rules you out, Nick.
9 companions.
So be it. You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring.
Right. Where are we going?
Yeah.
It's such a classic, and there's so many moments like that Pip keeps everything light. He's the garnish on this dish that otherwise would be very, very heavy and dour and sad a lot.
And
so,
really,
God bless Pip for being there.
I really call out to his acting too, because he is by far the oldest of the 4 hobbits. But he did a wonderful job coming across as the youngest and stupidest.
Yes, absolutely.
You really want to do this? Here. Now? Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's do it!
I think it's kind of a formality at this point to even say whether or not. But, I mean, can we just skip that and we all are giving it a thumbs up, right?
Yeah, we love this movie. I think it's apparent.
Perfect.
Like,
huge thumbs up.
There's not even
It's a masterpiece.
There's not even a chance
Especially,
that
like,
we're going to say no.
All 3 of them are fantastic. This one is personally my favorite of the trilogy, and I would call it a masterpiece. I think it's one of those movies that on paper it seems daunting and impossible to make, and yet here we are talking about it 20 years later.
Still gushing.
For 3 hours.
Still finding layers.
For 3.5 hours.
Yeah, like, honestly, I feel like we could walk away for another week and come back. I'm not going to do this. But we could do another hour.
Please, no. Please,
like, we could just, if every one of us went and did a little bit of research on behind the scenes stuff, we could find another hour of stuff to talk about. I think it's like a near inexhaustible well of cool stories that have come from how they made these stories, the actual universe of what we're talking about that we haven't even touched on. Because I guarantee you there are Lord of the Rings fans that have listened to this entire however many hours we've been talking, and they're going, hey, you forgot about blank. I know.
Absolutely.
I know. Trust me.
Absolutely.
That's part of why we knew this was going to be exhausting, because we know that Lord of the Rings is a huge fucking bite to chew off.
This is our quest. We have to travel all the way to Mordor, and it's daunting.
Yeah. And we're trying to do our best to hit all the major points. So if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, remember, we're just trying our best. We're just normal men. We're just innocent men.
And woman.
We're just normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
We're just a couple of hobbits, man. Yeah.
We are going to move on to Two Towers. There's a strong chance that this episode is going to be coming out in parts. So thank you for those of you that have been sticking with us through this Fellowship of the Wing. Fellowship of the Wing.
The Fellowship of the Wing.
Knowledge.
Fellowship
Muppet
of
version.
the Ring. We are so happy that you have joined us.
Oh god, that's the Muppet version, and it's Gonzo as Frodo, and it's the Fellowship of the Ring.
I was thinking the impressive clergymen.
All right, so yeah, perfect rating for us. I think you're going to be really sad if you're expecting us to give anything in this trilogy less than a 2 thumbs up, because even though we might have favorites or not favorites, I think we all really liked every single one of them. The hard part for me is I think you brought up an interesting point. Like, your current favorite is Fellowship of the Ring. Let's see if you still feel that way after watching the next 2 movies. I don't know what my favorite is, so I don't know what I'm going to pick. And I think that's going to be one of our big questions at the end is which one is your favorite out of these 3 and why? Why did you pick that one to be your favorite?
And spoiler alert, we're totally going to discuss if you still feel like those characters are who you are at the end of the movie.
Fair. Yeah, that's a good one.
At the end of the trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah, because calling yourself Gimli now carries a certain amount of like self-deprecating humor that you realize that you're kind of like the funny one, or you might be the butt of some jokes, that kind of thing. But Gimli by the end of the trilogy might have a very different connotation. I mean, at least my memory is that he's a very different person by the end.
As Gimli, you've also outed yourself as a pervert. So
Well,
I just sniffing people's hair or whatever. You got anything? Can you work up a sweat in it before you send it to me? Like. All right, well, on that note, thank you for joining us. Follow us on social media, ko-fi.com/screenshare, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook. Please leave us reviews. Thank you for having patience with us. We'll be releasing some other stuff, too, as soon as we can put them together. So maybe you've already seen that, maybe you haven't. But either way, for Screen Share and Chill, I'm Kelly.
I'm Keith.
I'm Jamie. Bye.
Goodbye.
Be kind to any weird creatures you see in your life. You don't know what they're dealing with. Don't put them in your mouth.
Or do.
I'm going to call the police. You go ahead, call them. Call anybody you want. They can't do anything to me. Not anymore. And nor can any of you. You go ahead, call.
We're just innocent men.
And woman.